Up to this point, we've covered a lot about the basics of React. We've created our user interface, and we've even interfaced with Firebase to store our data, but our application doesn't look very good, and we haven't really covered much about styles. So that's what we're going to do today. So our application isn't looking that great right now. We have songs that we can click on, but you can't even tell what these songs are because we're not quite showing the right data yet. And it's just basically plain text on a page. So you also can't tell what you're editing once you're in here. We're going to fix that all today, but it would take too long to come up with an exact look and feel that we want to have for this entire application, so we're going to rely on something else. This time around, we're going to rely on a React-based UI toolkit called Blueprint. And this is going to give us access to a lot of different things that we can use throughout the application as we continue to move forward. Buttons, some improved styles, some default styles for us. So we're going to pull this in, and then we're going to go from there and kind of improve a little bit of what our application has. But we'll leave the big stuff for later on. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to do yarn add at Blueprint.js/core. This looks a little bit different than what we've done in the past, and that's just how they named the module, and they broke it into separate submodules if you want to pull in some additional features later on. If we scroll back up and take a look at some of this output, you'll see that we get a warning up here saying that it's missing an unmet peer dependency, React add-on CSS transition groups. So let's copy that. And let's also yarn add that. Now that we've got our dependencies installed, it's time for us to actually go and use this. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to yarn start. In our editor, what we want to do is we want to open up app.js, actually index.js. And the first thing we need are we want the styles to kind of overwrite what we have. And up to this point, the only styles that we have are in index.html, and there are just us handwriting styles in a style tag, but that's not how we're going to do it here. So we can actually import the styles into our JavaScript, and then Webpack will kind of sort things out as we go on. So we are going to pull in normalize.css, normalize.css, and then we're also going to import at Blueprint.js core dist blueprint.css. So let's save that, make sure everything compiles successfully. And then when we go back here, you'll notice that there's not margin on this. This is a different font. It's slightly different color. So the base styles were applied. We're going to kind of work from top to bottom on our page, and then we'll work on separate pages as we go. So the first thing that we're going to do is actually add some navigation, because as of right now, it's hard to get to the /songs, which is kind of our route right now. So we're going to go to header.js, and we're going to change this to actually be something useful. So the first thing we want to do is we're going to import link, because we're going to use this to link to songs. And so this is from React Router DOM from our previous, well, a couple of tutorials ago. And then we're basically going to change this entire thing. So we will get rid of that. And then we're going to put a nav of class name. And then these come directly from Blueprint. So PT, and this is a little bit because of the company that creates them. It's Palantir. So that's where you're going to see a lot of this PT and be like, oh, that doesn't seem like it would be something related to Blueprint, but that's where it comes from. So we're going to create a nav bar, and then inside of here, we're going to create a couple different things. So we're going to do class name, and then we have nav bar group, and then we want to align this to the left. So this is where we're going to put our, imagine we had a logo. For right now, we're just going to put some text about it, but inside of here, we're going to have another class name with PT, navbar, heading, Chord. I haven't decided what to call the application yet. I'm going to call it Chord Creator, because I like to think that people are making new things. And then we're not actually using this yet, but I like this from the example that they have. So we're going to add a search field. Give it a placeholder of search songs. And this is a type text. So that covers the left-hand side of our navigation. We want another one, so we're going to copy this, pull this down here, delete these. We have another group, and this one's going to be aligned to the right. And we're going to create a link that's going to have the class name of PT button, PT minimal. Don't want it to be a very big button. PT icon music. This is kind of another nice thing. It gives us icons to work with. And this is going to point to /songs. We're going to call it songs. And then we'll add a couple more that these will be more useful once we have authentication, but we'll add a button for someone to actually log in or view their user profile. And then there's not going to be anything in there. And then we'll add another one that'll be for like settings. So we'll have a cog there. And we're actually going to put a little divider here too. So span of class name, PT navbar divider. Okay, so now our header actually has a little bit more going on. If we save this and we head back, it looks like cannot read property history of undefined. And if we go and we take a look at app.js, let's see where we're using our header. So our header is outside of our router, and that's actually where this problem's coming from. So we're going to copy that and just move it down in here. And then we're getting another error saying that we can only have one child element, so we have to create a new div. Then we'll find the matching one here and create a new closing div. Save it again. And there we go. Now we actually have some navigation that looks pretty all right. And you can actually navigate to songs. So if we click on one of our songs and then click this again, it'll take us back. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're actually going to tackle this page. We're going to create some sort of component to work with our songs and clean up how this looks. So if we look at how we render songs again, we're just doing this UL and going through a list of things. And so this is the first place I think I want to change this. Let's actually create a real component for this. So let's go to source components, and we're going to call this a song list. I added some macros to my editor so that I can kind of expand these things and make it a little bit easier to create React components. But yeah, we're going to just a bare bone song list component. And then we're going to do a couple different things here. So we link in this also. So let's import link from React router DOM. And then we're going to go down here and actually let's create the markup first, and then we will style it. So the first thing we need inside of render is we're going to have a const of songs, and this is going to come from props. And so this is the expansion kind of syntax that we've talked about in the past. Then we have const, and we want song IDs, and this is so we can iterate over them properly. So object.keys, songs. And that gives us everything we need in terms of that, and then we'll create a single div. And then in here, we want an H1 to give it a title. And then we're going to style this a little bit. So we're going to give it margin bottom of 0.5em. This is going to say songs. And then we're going to kill that off. Next, we're going to create a div, and this is going to have styles. But these are going to be a little bit more complicated. So we're going to say song list styles. And this is actually something we're going to define up here. So we're going to come out here and do const song list styles equals, and we're just going to make this a hash. So it's going to have display, flex. I really like flexbox, so we're going to use that. It's going to have a flex direction of row, flex wrap of wrap, and justify content. It's going to be center. Then we're also going to create one for the individual songs, and we're going to use a card component for this. So we're going to use song card styles. And then these won't have a ton going on, but we're going to have a max width of 30%, a min width of 150 pixels, flex 1, and margin of 5 pixels in all directions. So we'll save those. Down here, we need to iterate through things again. So inside of song styles, we're going to add some JavaScript. And this is going to do basically the same thing we had before. So we're going to have song IDs, map, ID, and then in here we want const song. We have to fetch the individual song. So we'll do songs with that ID. And then we want to return in here a div with a key, because anytime we iterate over something, we need to have a key. Otherwise, React gets mad. Styles of song, card styles. And then we'll give it a class name of PT card, PT elevation 0, and PT interactive. And this just gives us a little bit of CSS animation that looks pretty nice. So close that div off, and then we want an h5 in here. We're going to use our link, and then this is going to go to songs/song.id. Or I guess in this case, we can just do ID. That would work out. Close that off. And then our actual content here is going to be song title, so you can actually see what you're clicking into. Oh, and I forgot to close this right here. All right. So if we save that, make sure everything compiles, and come back. Let's refresh. Oh, it helps if you use the song list somewhere. So let's go back into app.js, and let's get rid of all of this. And we're just instead, oops, let's get that too, going to return a song list with songs being this.state.songs. So if we save that and come back, song list is not defined. We need to import it. And then the other thing is that this is the only place we use link, so we will get rid of that too. Everything seems to compile. That's good. And there we go. Except for there's an extra thing at the end there, so I apparently messed something up in song list. Oh, yeah, right there. Save that. Now everything shows, and I did add some more sample songs while we were gone because I had to create a new project so you don't all know my secrets. That gets us most of the way there, but we're kind of unbounded. We're going from edge to edge on the screen, and that doesn't give them much room to breathe. So we're going to go back into app.js and kind of clean that stuff up too. So let's go to app.js, and all the changes we were going to make are going to be in this render function down here. So we're going to go from the top here. We have this current router right here that is in this wrapper, but our wrapper doesn't actually do anything. We don't have any actual styles on that, so we're just going to delete that. We're going to put a style block here, and then we're going to put an inline hash, and we're going to set a max width of 1160 pixels, then a margin of 0 auto to center it. And so this will give us a little bit of room to expand. And then if we're on a small screen, then we can go edge to edge and still be okay. So just saving that, it'll kind of bound things in a little bit. And then we see we need to add some space here and maybe a little bit more space around here to make sure things are working out properly. But you see that just using Flexbox, we do have the ability for this to like compress itself down, and it looks all right depending on the screen size. So what we're going to do is we're going to go down to main content, and we're going to add some more styles here too. And the bulk of this is we just need a little bit of padding. So we're going to add 1 em of padding in all directions. If we come back, now it looks a little bit better. There's a little bit more space. There is a little bit of an alignment issue here, and that's because we have margin on all sides of this. And that's something that we could fix, but I'm not going to worry about it right now. Maybe I'll fix it later. Okay, so the last thing that we have, if we look at this again, is we have The actual Chord Editor still kind of looks like crap, but unfortunately, these two areas are going to be the bulk of where the rest of our work in this application is going to go, because we need to make this nice so it doesn't look like a programmer is the only one who can use it. Like, just showing this stuff and kind of, I don't know. The font doesn't look very good, and just writing into this giant text area is kind of ugly, and you need to know the special syntax. So we want to add some stuff to where you can just kind of highlight a letter or whatever. Or I guess anything you highlight, you could highlight as much as you wanted. And then maybe right click and it would open up some kind of contextual menu that would let you add chords to it. And then behind the scenes, I could add this syntax in for you. But that's for a different tutorial. So right now we're just going to clean this up a little bit. We need to add a title because I have no idea what song I'm working on right now. And then we're actually going to add some breadcrumbs too. So if we open up Chord Editor and we import, we're going to import the breadcrumb from @Blueprint.js core, and we'll use that here in a second. So now we go down to render and look at what we've got. We're going to add another wrapping div because we're going to add some things above this. Okay. And then here we're going to add a UL of class name PT breadcrumbs. And then inside of this, what we need to have is an LI. This will have the class name. Actually, it doesn't have a class name. And then inside of here, we're going to use the breadcrumb component. So bread, wow. And we say where this actually links to. So this is going to go to songs. It's going to have the text of songs. And we copy that again, and this one is just going to go to itself, and in here we're going to put this.props.song.title. So if we go and take a look at that now, we have some simple breadcrumbs up here that we can click on. Click on this one, obviously it's not going to take you anywhere, but if you click on songs, it'll take you back. Next up, we're going to add an H2, and this is going to have a little bit of style into it. So it's going to have margin of 0.5 em, 0. So we only want margin up and down. And then CH2, and this is going to have this.props.song.title. We're going to save that off. Okay, so now you can see what you're working on. Input, output is probably, you know, that's a little blah, doesn't really help us right now, but we're not going to work on this, like I said. So that's all we're going to do for right now, adding some styles. So we added more or less the Chrome to the application, and we did that by utilizing a third-party UI framework. And what we really learned here is how you can actually interact with styles. So we learned that you could import styles directly into your JavaScript, and then when everything is said and done, it's going to be figured out for you through Webpack. And then additionally, we figured out how we could use just actual JavaScript objects in order to create some styles and keep them modularized to our components. So those styles will only ever be rendered on the page when a component is rendered on the page. So in theory, that gets you to the point where you're only using the CSS that you actually need. But this sets us up well in order to continue working and actually spruce up what our actual editor looks like and give us something that by the time we're all said and done with it will be really good for helping people create chord charts. I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, be sure to leave a comment down below telling me why you liked it and what you're going to do with this knowledge. Be sure to subscribe to the channel so you can get more of these tutorials each week. And also don't forget to join us on Patreon, Facebook, Slack so you can keep the chat going, and on Twitter. But as always, have a nice week.